Government offices are much the same everywhere. Sometimes the officials in them are good people, helpful and kind. Sometimes they are not. And if you need something badly, sometimes it is necessary to give little presents, maybe some money, which then disappears into a back pocket. These are the ways of the world. People have been giving and taking bribes forever. Marina Salcedo, senior clerk, 2nd grade, hurried to her desk to open her pay envelope. It was the 15th of July, and tomorrow she was leaving for Manila to get the promotion that she had been promised for 5 years. She had worked in the ministry for 20 years, and in the last 5 years, the cost of living had risen greatly. Without the extra money from her promotion, her youngest son would not be able to go to college. Also, 3 years ago, they had borrowed money on their house when her husband had had to go to hospital. She checked her pay carefully. 260 pesos. This is what she would take to Manila. She walked down to the far end of the hall, to the chief's office. The girls there were not talking. That meant the chief was in. His secretary told her to go straight in. The chief was reading a dirty copy of Playboy, a magazine for men full of photos of women. He did not put the magazine away, and Marina stood in front of him, waiting for him to look up. He was about 50, and going bald. "So, you are leaving tomorrow, Marina," he said. "Yes, sir." "Well, you can have the afternoon off to get ready. You will only have 3 working days in Manila. Do you think that will be enough?" "I would like to have 3 more days, sir, if possible." "No problem, Marina," the chief said. "Oh, and when you are there, will you please buy me the latest gabardine material for a pair of pants? I will pay when you get back." "Yes, sir. Thank you." Gabardine material. It must cost at least 60 pesos. Last time, the chief wanted a pair of Levi jeans. They had cost 120 pesos. When she returned, they had played this little game. He saying he must pay, she refusing to take the money. After all, he was not a bad boss. 3 days off with pay, for example. And he did not try to touch her in the way he did with the other women clerks. The bus left at 6 in the morning, driving along the valley through the newly planted rice fields, the water shining in the early morning sun. The roads were good, with strong new bridges, making the journey to Manila only 10 hours. It used to take a full day. This was progress, the kind that people could see and enjoy. Marina knew there were problems in the mountain villages and other places, but in her province things were calm. Her own life was not so bad. She and her husband had finally built a house. 3 children, 1 married and soon to leave for the United States. Another soon to finish college. And the youngest nearly finished high school. But the cost of living had gone up. They had to cook on wood fires and could not afford to buy toilet paper. 5 years ago, she had asked for promotion. She had gone to Manila twice about it, and finally she had received a notice saying it would happen. The bus arrived in Manila as it was getting dark. Marina walked to the street where her second cousin lived. They had been college students together. She would probably sleep on a hard sofa in their living room. But that was better than spending 30 pesos on a cheap, dirty room somewhere. They were having dinner when she arrived, and, like a good relation, she had brought meat, fish, and rice from her province. They seemed pleased to see her, but Marina noticed that her cousin soon asked, "When will you leave?" "I won't be here more than a week," she said, "and I won't eat here. I'll spend every day at the ministry, following up my papers." She was up at 6 the next day. Her cousin's children, aged 13 and 14, were getting ready for school. They had kept her awake playing rock music in the night. When she arrived at the ministry, she went straight to personnel. The people that she worked with years ago in that office had all left, and there was nobody she knew. She asked for the person who worked on the papers of staff promotion, and was sent to the other end of the office, to a fat woman in her early 30s, with bad teeth, thin hair, and a uniform that was too small for her large body. The woman brought out a list and read through it carefully. Then she moved some papers around on her desk and looked up with a fat little smile. "I am sorry, Mrs. Salcedo, but your name is not here. Maybe the forms got lost." "But it cannot be," Marina said. Her voice got louder. "I have the official letter from you." She quickly pulled it out of her handbag. "Here, and the file number." The woman shook her head, and her fixed little smile did not change. "Mrs. Salcedo," she said sweetly, "I will have to look through the files, hundreds and hundreds of them. I will have to ask one of the boys." She opened the drawer in her desk that was closest to Marina. "Why don't you drop a 20-peso bill in here for him?" For a moment, Marina Salcedo could not believe this was happening to her. She worked in the same ministry as these people. Then she remembered that Anita Botong in her office in the province did the same thing. It had gone on for a long time. Too long to be easy to stop. She took a 20-peso bill from her handbag and dropped it in the drawer. "Will I come back this afternoon, then?" she asked. "Oh, Mrs. Salcedo," the woman said, still smiling. "You know how difficult it will be. Why don't you come back early tomorrow. I am from the province. Yes, I know. I will do all I can to help you. She had nothing more to do. She left the ministry and took a jeepney to the market in Quiapo. What was the best kind of gabardine, she asked, and what did it cost? In the end, she bought the material in one of the big department stores for 34 pesos. Then she looked round the rest of the market and found that food prices were higher than at home. So, prices in the province were not so bad then. She spent 5 pesos on a bowl of noodles with chicken for lunch, then walked around the city. She had not been to Manila for some time, and it had changed a lot. In Makati, a very rich area, there were tall, glass-sided buildings, and the streets were clean. It was like America. She thought of her son, who would soon be in America. One day in the future, she and her husband hoped to join him there. But the future was here, in Makati, and if this was the future, was it necessary to leave the country? The next morning, back at the ministry, the fat woman had found her papers, but there was a new form to complete. Marina would have to fetch Form D22A from another office in the building, fill it in, and then take it to personnel, who would sign it and send it back to the first office. This office was on the 5th floor, and the lift was not working. The man in the Form D22A office was very sorry. "Oh, please come back tomorrow afternoon. We have no forms here at the moment. We have to get some more." Marina recognized the old game at once, and was annoyed. The top drawer in the man's desk was open, and Marina dropped a 5 peso bill into it. She must remember to carry 2 peso bills, she thought. "Please, I am really in a hurry," she said. "Do try and find one. There must be one lying around." The man closed his desk drawer with a smile, then went to an old filing cabinet behind his desk. It didn't take him a minute to find the form. The form had a lot of questions about dates of this and that, school and college, travel abroad. That made Marina laugh. How many government clerks have ever travelled abroad? She hadn't even travelled around her own country. Looking back over her past, she began to think about what she wanted from life. She had never wanted to climb to the top of the tree, to become a minister. Both she and her husband were happy enough with things as they were. After all these years, they had their own home, a piece of land, and they could sleep deeply at night, not worried by the kind of bad dreams that important ministers must have. She took her completed form to the chief in the office, who was said to be an honest man. Now was the moment when she would find out if that was true. She waited and waited, and was at last called over to the glass-topped desk where Chief Bermudez was sitting.
"Well, what is your problem?"
"My promotion, sir," Marina said. "I've been waiting a long time for it." She put her papers on the desk in front of him. Chief Bermudez read them all carefully.
"Well, Mrs. Salcedo, everything here seems all right. You know what to do next. After I sign the forms, you go to finance to find out if there are funds to pay you. If there are, the minister will sign the papers, and you will have your 100 pesos a month. And I think your pay rise should start at the beginning of this year, to give you those extra months. I will make sure that happens."
He began to sign the papers.
"I know you have worked for the ministry for a long time. Things happen too slowly sometimes. I should not tell you this, really. But we must be patient. We must push and push and push, but only gently."
He smiled.
"Good luck with finance."
They were now alone in the room. "Is that all, sir?" said Marina.
"Why? Is there something that I have forgotten?"
In her surprise, Mrs. Salcedo forgot to thank him. At the door, she decided that Chief Bermudez was a good man. Perhaps she should buy him some gabardine material too. After all, he had added several extra months to her pay rise. After a quick lunch, just some bananas and a drink, she went to finance. The girls in the office were sitting talking, or reading newspapers, or doing nothing. The finance chief, she was told, was out and would not be in until tomorrow. Marina left and decided to go and see a movie. The next morning, she was back in finance before 8 o'clock. She noticed that the office had several pretty girls, and they seemed to do nothing. At 8:30, the finance chief arrived, Julio Lobo, one of the top men in the ministry. He was wearing a brown gabardine suit. She recognized the material